think we are live. Yes, we are. Okay. Hello and welcome, all you fantastic viewers, to the Omega Republic. Thank you for joining us here today. I am once again your host, Coppercap. Today we'll be doing something a little different than what we normally do. Instead of interviewing others, we're going to review a little show called My Little Pony: Pony Life. Uh, Also joining me today is our returning co-host, Cosmic Prose,
Hey,
and uh, a previous guest and our beloved, fantastic artist, Mountain Soul.
Hello.
Now, what we're going to be doing is we're going to be reviewing a specific episode of the series Pony Life. But before we get started, I'd like to give you some background of the show. The overall concept and creation, if you will. This series was produced by Entertainment One in collaboration with Allspark Animation, which was absorbed by E1 after the first season, and Boulder Media. Entertainment One is an independent Canadian entertainment company owned by Hasbro. This company makes the decisions for distribution of shows and films. Well, they are involved in it. Strange they handled Pony Life because they also were associated with Fear of the Walking Dead. So, we'll just move on before we zombify the conversation. I'm going to die alone, aren't I? Anyways, the show itself is mainly the in-between generation for the MLP series and the continuation of sort of a parallel universe, if you will, of The Friendship is Magic, written and originally created by Lauren Faust. All hail the Faust!
hail the Faust!
The Friendship is Magic series was labeled as Generation 4. Pony Life, which we're going to be reviewing, is considered to be the sub-series and to be Generation 4.5, sort of the in-between. The general purpose of this series is sort of a break and somewhat a comedic, lighthearted relief show for the fans who loved the characters and story. We are once again blessed with some of our favorite characters: AJ, Rarity, Flash, Fluttershy, Twilight, Pinkie, and apparently Rainbow Color Spectrum Nash? Yeah. That hair definitely changed a little bit. But I digress. We're also graced with the previous series voice actors, returning once again to our favorite characters: Ashley Ball, Tara Strong, Tabitha St. Germain, Andrea Libman, and so many other familiar voices once more entertaining us in this cute little series. Unfortunately, Kathy Westlake, the voice of Spike the Dragon, doesn't make a reappearance in the series. With the story design, the first two-part episode of this series is titled Princess Prose. Episode 1, written by Kathleen Chilson, whom also wrote for the series My Little Pony Equestria Girls and Littlest Pet Shop. And the storyboard was developed by Akis, I'm going to butcher this name, Dimitrakopoulos and Oriel Vidal. Akis actually participated in the works of The Amazing World of Gumball as well. Now we get into the episode itself. The summary of the episode is Pinkie Pie has entered a contest for getting her own cooking show for the princess, and yes, Celestia is in the episode. Now, Pinkie being Pinkie, one second. Pinkie being Pinkie being Pinkie, I should not have written it that way, is just doing it her way at first, having fun and being completely spontaneous. But her friends of the main six decide to offer their input and creative suggestions for how Pinkie should handle herself during the contest, worrying that her style will ruin her chances. This unfortunately creates tension and anxiety for Pinkie Pie as she tries to attempt these techniques offered by her friends. She begins to panic and nearly blows the whole audition. And this is where we begin our review. Take it away, Mountain Soul.
Yeah, so what should we start with? Let's start with the storytelling, the pacing, the moral of the story, such like that. Um, since it's broken up into two parts, it was very fast paced, I felt like. What was that?
No, I didn't say nothing. But I do agree with that. It was very fast paced compared to what we've dealt with in Generation 4, where the episode took 22 minutes. This was kind of pushed a little bit, as with our normal first episode of each series, we had 20 like a 44-minute episode, which was broken into two parts. With each intro to each series, we normally had a two-part episode.
Correct me if I'm wrong, but are the two parts 10 minutes each or 5 minutes each? I can't remember.
The episode was actually 11. Each part was 11 minutes long.
Okay, so that would make it the same 22 minutes, and yet the pacing of the video itself just felt super rushed. Like they were trying to make the vines out of all these little tiny memes that they threw in just to try and get the attention of people.
Mm-hmm. Cosmic.
I kind of felt that too, kind of like Mountain's saying that it was a really, really rushed job. They just kind of threw the most basic, barest bits of an episode to make 11 minutes filled. I think maybe because I was watching this and thinking back to the first episode of Generation 4, pilot episode for that, show back in 2010. I was thinking of that between the two episodes, and I think maybe the difference between the two is that besides the several massive amount of differences, is that with Generation 4, it seems more or less polished. It's more polished version. It's, I think, not only set for the audience that most people would think for, girls from age blank to blank, most likely something like 3 to 7, maybe a little bit older, but also for a adult audience that made the Brony nation as it is now, which is still massive as it is, and probably Bronies are watching Pony Life as well. Whereas I feel that Pony Life itself has a less polished, more how should I say, cartoonish, more animated, more just physic binding, breaking laws thing. That it was more maybe this 4.5, this Pony to Life was maybe more made for the younger audience and only the younger audience. I'm not saying that bronies, no, you don't have to, siphon this off and not watch Pony Life. That's not what I'm saying. I'm just saying I think maybe Generation 4 was more for the entire brony fandom, whereas Pony Life is more maybe for the younger generation or the new generation, so we can get the new generation to start watching Gen 5 when it comes out purportedly next year. I think, but back to, I feel that the episodes do feel kind of rushed, like just trying to get everything to make a half episode into this small little time slot just to, and so short because if we're trying to get the new generation into the next the younger generation into the next gen of the ponies, we, their attention span will be shorter. So make a shorter episode so we can get them into this too. I think that's my thought on how the whole reason of the difference of times between Gen 4 and Gen 4.5.
But we also have to keep in mind for the fact that this is not an actual full-length series. This is intended to be a mini series as a break between 4 and 5, which we know 5 is coming and it's going to take us in a whole new direction from what we know. I consider it to be a bit of a sort of that chocolate mint on the pillow, if you will, to give us a chance to one last chance to revisit our characters that we know and love with the voices they know and love, even though their situations have been completely changed. Their attitudes have been watered down in a sense. I mean, we had all this growth and development of our characters in Generation 4, but now, from what I can tell in this first two-part episode, we get our characters in this story plot that they're back to their base settings, like where Fluttershy is back to being her nervous, scared, soft-spoken, well, not quite as soft-spoken self. But it's pretty much just and with this, it's just going off the first episode. This is my first impression: is that we're getting back to being our one-note characters, but they also give them more, like you said, cosmic and childlike personalities. Not quite as grown up as they were in Generation 4. The story itself, the way it moves, is pushing it forward, and not really. There's really no handbrake here. It just flows right through, and like it doesn't give you really much of a chance to take it all in like you would with Generation 4. I get that it's supposed to be a mini-series, but it does make it a little bit challenging to enjoy the situation when all the text and subtext of it, the episode is it's just really pushed along. You don't have a chance to soak it in. And with the comedic style, it does kind of help you enjoy it, but not as, because there's a real lack of like heavy like real life experiences. It doesn't really have that same level that you would have gotten from a Generation 4 episode.
Yeah, I would like to also say, you mentioned about the watering down of characters. I noticed that the characters' personalities almost seemed shuffled around, at least to me. Like, Pinky is Pinky. She's going to be crazy and energetic and whatever. But AJ is the one that's actually breaking the fourth wall. Because she looks straight at the camera and she's like, I missed this. Did you miss this? So obviously the team is expecting older fans to join, but that's not usually something AJ would usually do.
And that is correct. And actually, go ahead. Go ahead, Cosmic.
Yeah, I was just gonna agree entirely. It's usually a Pinky thing.
I had forgotten about that scene where AJ had looked at the camera and said that. It makes me wonder, was she saying it because she was told to say it, or was she saying it because her voice actor actually did miss it?
Yeah, I don't know. That's really interesting to think about. That maybe it was the voice actor herself trying to portray her love for these characters.
Yeah, I'm not going to put any input on that because I'll probably go on for a couple minutes in both directions.
Anyway, going back to the story itself, Pinky is trying to create this masterpiece dessert for her tryout for this TV show. And everybody's trying to give her advice on how to do it and what to do. And from an artist perspective and knowing kitchens having to be cleaned and whatnot, which is something that they bring up. I understand, like, they're trying to show Pinky is messy in her kitchen, but why? But dear God, why did you put flies buzzing around the food? That's just so unhygienic, and it bugs me so much.
It's
Because, well, I'm saying this because it goes against what the story is trying to say. Like, I understand. You want to let someone do their own thing and go at their own pace, but in a kitchen, it's really important to keep it clean. Are we trying to teach kids to just leave a mess when they're cooking?
well, there's also the fact of overusing ingredients and wasting food in the process. The fact that if you remember Pinky in Generation 4, there was time where she did make a mess, but at most times the food was not wasted, from what we could see. But the food is being wasted here, so obviously in this series they have less concern about being conservative, being non what's this not wasteful. I'm blanking out here. Good grief. What's the word for not wasteful?
There's lots of words for that.
Anyways, the one thing that irritated me about this storyline is you were first greeted by them all drinking something and then going gulp 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 gulp, which that's what kind of stuck out with me. Is it just seems unnecessary.
Unfortunately, I have had a very, very small spoiler where I know the potions are going to be a catalyst for a longer running story throughout the Pony Life series. But you're right, it felt so out of place in the first episode.
Cosmic.
No, kind of. Once again, I mean, she's got the Sunday of powering, leading, whatever. I mean, it's no marzipan meringue madness or anything like that. But it's no in the series, and I don't want to say anything too hurtful because even as the show it is, so I do feel that the voice. I don't want to say that either. It seems just as how it's rushed that the voice actors are also rushed in the show. Like they've got to come up with something and say something, and it's just it feels like somebody who should not have the liberty of writing the episodes wrote the episodes regardless. Even though it's made for the audience it's made for. I feel that, well, not sure how to exactly put it into words. I just feel that the episodes, besides being rushed, if we just throw that off the table, and besides having to make the show as it is being rushed like that, I just feel that not that the script was wrong as it was said, but that the script was written, but it was written once and then checked for grammatical and spelling errors and then given to the voice actors. And it's like you can't just fix grammatical and spelling errors. You've got to look at this and re-edit it twice in my opinion, just to make it all flow together. I'm not saying that the video that the show didn't flow, because it did, but I felt like at certain parts of the show it flowed really weird. I'm thinking, wait a minute, that doesn't make any sense when this is said or that is said. I'm like, that makes only so much sense. I understand where you're going from, but it seems like from point to point to point to point where people were talking, it was more like connect the dots kind of picture, and that's how you get the final picture of that episodes, a half episode at the same time. It felt like you were having to connect dots. So in other words, you were drawing a line from dot 1 to 2 to 3, etc., but you didn't know if it was supposed to be a straight line or a curved line or a line that did a loop. But I felt like point to point to point was more or less disjointed than actually connected, like it should have been. Like we did have with Gen 4, everything was connected. And I know we had 22 minutes to do an episode, but I felt that everything was more connected and flowed a lot smoother. I understood it. At least my mind understood what was going on. But in Pony Life, the points are there, but the line, it's like I have to, because if you go back to my thought of connect the dots, you're supposed to draw a straight line. Pony Life, I have to actually keep moving the pen in different directions, and I'm not supposed to do that. It's supposed to be a straight line. This one has, like I said, curves and twists and turns. So I felt like, although the story was connected, it was a really disjointed connection. It was really kind of went every which way, and that was weird.
Mm-hmm. Now, go ahead.
And I mean, I'm just trying to give it grace because I know it's trying to set up a lot of different things, situations, storytelling, all in this first episode, which inevitably all shows have their hard first opening, if that makes sense. Mm-hmm. They're just trying to set up the world so much that it's hard to have a even story. So I'm trying to give them some grace in that. But when I first turned on the episode, with everybody being there and Pinky suddenly exploding out of excitement, I felt like I had started the episode like in the middle of what was going on.
Now, if you recall the first episode of the Generation 4, the very first thing that we get is Twilight reading the book. But with her reading that book, it starts us off with a story plot. We didn't start off in the middle of something. Even though this was the middle of Twilight's day and she was just resting on the field reading a story, we were able to read this story with her and be able to start on this fantastic journey that led her to where we witnessed, the finale. And I agree that when you hop into this episode, immediately you're bombarded by so much going on at once that it's hard to focus. Pinkie Pie being the star of this episode makes it even harder yet, because as spontaneous as she is, bouncing around, exploding, and everything like that, it does make it a little bit challenging, but at the same time, I think they did an okay job with not, going too far overboard to where, we couldn't kind of keep up with the story plot. Kids, unfortunately, when they watch this, kids suffer from one thing so severely that it's hard to make good stuff for them, and that's attention span. Their attention span is limited. If they don't see something that's quick, spontaneous, if there's not something constantly changing in front of them, they're going to lose interest in it, and then that affects, unfortunately, the show's rating. So the artists have to compensate for that as well. And I think they did an okay job with pushing that forward. To be able to grab the audience that they're shooting for, I think it helps them a great deal.
Yeah, talking about the spontaneity of the show, do even remember the opening song, because for the life of me, I listened to it about 5 times, and I cannot remember any of the words.
Unfortunately.
Well, I listened to it quite a few more than 5 times. I do remember some of the words, but I don't remember all the words because, as useful it is, as it usually is with me, I have to listen to a song more than 5, 10, 15 times just to get all the words. And I knew I was not going to get them all before we did this. I knew that without a fact because um, one of the how do I want to phrase it? One of the um, parts of it. I don't know how to phrase this. One of the parts of it is more or less one word, one word, one word, one after the next. And I knew for me, I wasn't going to be able to get that as a set. But I did get you know, I did get the very beginning part, which is it's a sweet life, still a messy life, magic life, full of surprises, fast life. And once I learned that, I'm like, yeah, this song is super fast, and that kind of really does go in the show. It is messy and sweet at the beginning. There's magic in the middle. There's a bunch of surprises, and it's fast. And I was like, oh dear, oh no, this is yeah. So the it's just when they're doing, it's really a simple song. It's a lot shorter than the Gen 4 song, but I think that the Gen 4 song was slower and had had a longer time for you to actually get into how the song felt, the rhythm, the beat, and that. And you had X amount of time to sing it. And I think that's the reason why we know the Gen 4 better and we can sing it right off the bat without any problem. Because it had more time, it wasn't nearly as fast, and you had a beat and a rhythm that seemed to be, how should I put it, syncopated correctly. This one kind of has 2 or 3 different rhythms that shoot in through it, as well as Rarity saying her one single line of the whole sim, gaze upon my gems. And not that that's impossible, but with the Gen 4, everybody said their line at the end of the end of the end of the song instead of the beginning of the song, or in the middle of the song. And in that case, also everybody said something different that connected us with them in the first episode well with their element of harmony. But save for Twilight, but that's because she's got magic. Anyway, but every one of the said something at the very end of in Gen 4 at the end of the song that attached to their element and harmony, which I noticed in this that does not seem to be the case. Going back to what we were talking about just a minute with storytelling, we didn't really get a story to start us off. I'm not sure what the full how should I say it, what the end goal is of Pony Life, if there is an end goal, by the way. Because, we started off with the end goal of the pilot episode from Gen 4, defeating Nightmare Moon, aka Princess Luna. All hail Princess Luna. And with this one, we didn't really have a, per se, end result. The end result was for Pinky to successfully give her upside down flan to the princess and get her own cooking show, which I only watched the first episode enough times. I'm wondering if there's going to be a cooking show anytime later in the series. If you've seen it, do not spoil it for me. I will actually kill you. But like I said, like you said with the song, it's very fast. It's a lot to pack into in a very short amount of time. I think the song is maybe about 30 seconds long compared to Gen 4's being about a minute, maybe a little bit over a minute long. So There is. It's hard to get the song, but I think if you listen to it enough times, you may get more of the lyrics. I'm already trying to learn it myself, but it's just there's certain parts where the main six sing compared to the actual singer, and that's throwing me off. The main six sing, but then the singer also sings. I'm thinking there should be six people singing, not seven. So yeah, I got very few of the lyrics myself.
Yeah, from what I've seen, at least, the noise to, or the voice acting to background noise was really something that confused me. And I mean, this is even an example in the song was the popping party streamers or the characters talking over one another. That continues throughout the show, and it's really hard for me, at least, to constantly be trying to find the one main voice that's talking or leading the story on, and it got really confusing for me. It was really hard to focus on the story when there was suddenly someone drinking a potion, and it was really loud and annoying to me because that's a pet peeve of mine. But it just the noise to background noise was really hard for me to get over.
Yeah, because we didn't have the in-depth music track that we had on Generation 4, where the music was kind of, it was blending with everything that was going on. It was at the right level and the right tone with everybody when they were speaking, and it was just able to help with the sound effects that were in the background. It felt like someone was just going to town on a soundboard. I mean, no offense to the mixer. I understand that what they were doing was probably not entirely within their control, and they did what they could. And it's not like, I'm not saying that it was completely terrible, but I'm just saying it did not feel as good as what Generation 4 was, even though I know we're not trying to be exactly like Generation 4. This is intending to be a different series all in itself. In the story itself, what's that?
Go ahead, finish up your thought.
If you recall, in the story itself, getting further down the line, we get the typical Twilight trope. Pinkie is acting like Pinkie, and then guess what? Twilight decides to act like... Guess what? Guess.
Oh, you want us to actually guess? Twilight still, in my opinion, from watching it, if you say Pinkie, I think Twilight is acting like Twilight still. I mean, really, to be perfectly honest. I mean, she's not all encyclopedic or anything like that, but she's still acting like Twilight. But if you go back to Gen 4, sometimes she also flips out. But in my opinion, Twilight acted like Twilight. Pinkie acted like Pinkie. I don't think any of the characters actually jumped out of their skin so much, except for Pinkie at the very end of the episode.
Yeah, we don't necessarily get Twilight's in, and I'm not trying to make this sound insulting in any way, but we don't get the intellectual Twilight. We get the neat and clean and constantly self-aware Twilight, as she bombards Pinkie Pie, who is at her peak in joy, with nothing but an anxiety fire. Right, Mountain?
Yeah. But even still, with Twilight bombarding her with these worries and whatnot, and everybody telling Pinkie what to do and whatnot, I didn't feel like Pinkie really listened. Like there just wasn't enough time for her to try these other suggestions and fail, and then just resort back to her old self, and realizing that was working for her because she's Pinky. But I don't know, I just felt like even though they were trying to give her suggestions, she wasn't even listening. And I know that she was supposed to be listening and trying these different things.
Well, that's usually what Pinky is kind of like. She'll listen to what you say, but then it's more or less, when they say, "Did you hear what I said?" It's more like, "No, it went one in one ear and out the other," because Pinky has nothing to stop it in between. Um, so I mean, they suggested it, but as usually as Pinky is, she doesn't really take suggestions. I mean, you can think about all sorts of episodes where Pinky just does her own thing, regardless of what people tell her. From Gen 4, I mean, just randomly throughout the entire thing. I mean, if you want to get really, I'm going to keep referring to the marzipan mascarpone wearing madness, or the as we know it from the Gen 4. She more or less just kind of went off, and when they were trying to figure out who did what, she went off and accused the bakers without even trying anything. It's just like, oh yeah, I know what you're talking about. What was one of the bakers? And Twilight's over here being intelligent Twilight and being like, well, no, because of this. And it's like, well, that Pinky, you're totally wrong. But Pinky, as Pinky is, Pinky, she just went off as Pinky always does, and just, I don't know what it is I don't know exactly the word to give for Pinky here, because there's so many different adjectives to use that there's not one that's all encompassing Pinky. Because as we watched Pinky for the last decade before Pony Life, we got every side of Pinky from just about every angle. I mean, Carefree is one, Impervious is another one, and when I say impervious, I mean in different ways. She can't be hurt. She can't be given intelligence in any way. She can take insults and not even notice it. So we got about every angle of Pinky, and Pinky has more angles than anybody ever had in the history of all time, even fake people. But so I mean, we got every angle of Pinky there, and it's kind of the same here. Pinky is still kind of impervious, but at some point, eventually, also in Gen 4, she would finally, I'm going to have to use this word for this, she would finally pony up, as it were. I'm not trying, and pun intended, I guess, also pun not intended, but she would pony up and face the music, as it were, and say, okay, this is actually happening. Now I have to do the next thing. If I can try and refer to the Goof Off episode. She figured, it's over. Cheese Sandwich beat me. I'm done. He's the super duper party pony planner, and I'm second best. I'm not the bee's knees anymore, as it were. I'm only second best, and he's the best party pony planner. So with that, but still at the same time, this episode had that only once at the end, before they start all eating, before the rest of the main six, not Pinky, start eating their way out of the flan, which I hated that. She said flan, and that's the incorrect pronunciation. Sorry, I took Spanish for 4 years. But at the same time, she wasn't super depressed, because if she gets depressed, her hair deflates, much like a balloon. But I think how everybody acted, each of the main six characters that we had there, I think they more or less acted a lot like themselves. Sure, there were some things. I mean, Rarity's first great breakdown of getting some ice cream on her head. You ruined my vein. I think it's hilarious, because it sounds like, oh, that sounds like a lot of times of things that happened to you throughout all of Gen 4. And I will say there was a line. I'm amazed Rarity didn't say it. Twilight said, "This is the worst thing ever," and it's like, wait, isn't that Rarity's line? But yeah, I'm like, wait a minute, that's Rarity's line. So there was a lot of difference with this series compared to Gen 4. I think maybe they're trying to switch it up. They shouldn't be doing that. That's a no-no. It's a definite no-no at this point in time. You don't screw around with the characters after they've been so well developed. But I'm still giving the show big helping a big dollop of grace because it coming out after we've all more or less uh, kind of been in the show for 10 years, and you get you get what you get. But I would say there's nothing wrong with this episode. It's just the characters do uh, have different than what they usually are, but they also do relate a lot back to what they had been in Gen 4.
Mm-hmm. And getting back to the story itself, if you recall, during the episode, we had 3 different suggestions. Twilight's was to be neat and clean. And then we had Rarity take the center stage as she did the beloved Noor reference. The screen, if you remember, the colors go black and white, or grayscale if you want to call it, and her lips stay red. That was a very fun scene to see once again on Rarity.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah, no, I enjoy what they're trying to do with referencing back to all these older episodes and whatnot, and I look forward to see what they do. But I don't know, I just feel like to try and get the attention of all these older bronies to watch this show, they just jam-packed it full of old references.
And as Cosmic said, what they've done in this particular episode is they took and remade it, revised it, and pretty much mixed it with a bunch of sugar to create this one, because they're doing almost the exact same kind of storyline, but with different elements involved. Because if you recall, that had Twilight's anxiety. It had Rainbow Dash's enthusiasm, and it also had a Noor reference, like with Rarity's mystery. Now, this was not a mystery at all. This was more like a quick competition, if you will. We had the 3 different suggestions from the others. We had Twilight's cleanliness. We had Rarity's, we'll call it makeup enthusiasm. I know it was labeled something different, but I'm gonna call it makeup enthusiasm because she just slaps that makeup right on Pinkie Pie's face. And then, I believe Rainbow Dashes was the 3rd suggestion.
Sure, let's say that.
Yeah, it was Rainbow Dash being flashy, I believe.
Yes.
Oh my goodness. And we get to see all of that supposedly in action in the second part of the episode. And as you would expect, Pinkie Pie's anxiety is getting the best of her. But what I don't understand is, going back to the first part of the episode, is we see Twilight drink the potion and just, basically slam her head against rainbows, and then suddenly we're gifted with this sort of vision into what Twilight sees happening if Pinkie Pie continues being messy. What's your thoughts on that?
Yeah, it was kind of a telepathic show of anxiety from Twilight to Rainbow Dash, I guess. Trying to explain what might happen if something wasn't done, if they didn't interfere.
It was first it was Pinky with her quote unquote telepathic potion, showing Rainbow what the contest was. Off the top of my head, I can't remember exactly what the contest was called. Anyways, she showed her what Pinky showed her what Pinky would do without any of these quote unquote suggestions. Just Pinky being herself, doing it herself, instead of getting all these suggestions. And then Twilight did the same thing, showing Rainbow that if Pinky kept doing it in her way, that everything that could go wrong would go wrong, and Pinky would fall into a bottomless pit that led to who knows where. And so the potion thing is another thing that I really wasn't a whole lot excited about, but it was just another. I think it was a. How shall I put it? I'm going to say I think it was an interesting idea of putting those in, but I think you'd need somebody to make the potions first instead of just Pinky randomly having 6 potions that do that one that is a telepathic kind of thing, and the other ones all being normal. Also, I don't remember any of the ponies from Gen 4 drinking any potions whatsoever, so that was also something kind of weird. I'm thinking the only time I even all drinking at the same time was when they were after they stopped helping Applejack on the farm during Applebug season, where she missed half the orchard at the end of the episode.
But lest you forget, the potion that Twilight drank when Discord's vines went out of control.
Different kind of potion. I didn't say there wasn't a telepathic potion. I said, rarely did you ever see all the other 6 ponies, all of them, drinking a potion. Twilight's the only one that I can even think about. That's the only one. I do have to say, I'm kind of behind on season 9, but regardless, that was a certain potion, and it was brought by Zakora and nobody else. That may be the only potion. That may be it. The only potion that any pony of the main 6 drank from Gen 4. What I'm saying is, nowhere in Gen 4 do all 6 ponies drink a quote-unquote potion that's just randomly at somebody's place. You never see that. Ever. They're usually drinking punch or the aforementioned apple juice, as I said in the one episode, and so on and stuff like that. They're not usually just drinking a random something out of a potion flask or anything like that.
Yeah, it's almost like with the potions, it's almost like they're taking shots.
That's actually a very accurate description of that. I will agree that it seems like they are, since it's out of a potion flask, it seems that when they're drinking the potion at this sugar cube corner ripoff, which is something I'll talk about in a second, but as it seems as they're drinking something out of a quote unquote something that doesn't look like a glass or a teacup or anything that we would normally drink out of, I'm thinking, exactly what is in that flask of your potion, because it doesn't. It's not see-through. It could be just about anything. I don't know anybody that drinks, shots of tequila. I don't know anybody who does that, but nonetheless, I don't know what's in that potion thing. I'm not sure what would you call that. Flask is the wrong word. There should be a different name for it, but I don't know.
Vial.
I don't really want to call it that either because I think vial and I think chemistry set. So I'm just gonna use the word potion and we can work with that. Anyway, I'm thinking, okay, they're drinking a potion out of its container, and I don't know what's in the container. I don't know what color the potion is. So I'm thinking, okay, so somebody's gonna be drunk, and it's not gonna be Pinky because Pinky already seems drunk half the time anyway.
Well, you mentioned knockoff Sugar Cube Corner, which is, from what I've heard, is the main hub of where all this is going to mostly be. And that kind of leads into the art style of this whole show. So I'd like to hear all your opinions first before the artist in me comes out and says a lot of stuff.
Well, just from, there's not a lot of places you see in the show in the first episode to begin with, but, I understand that the artistry of it is as nearly as sophisticated as Gen 4. I understand that, but, if you go to it, when it shows up, Rarity and Fucking Apples, I'm talking only about the opening theme here. When it shows Rarity Bucking Apples, you see the barn behind her, and I noticed that the water tower that's also supposed to be right behind the barn is also in the barn. So the barn and the water tower are one, but it's weird, and that's weird because because it's like when you are playing a game and the background is breaking and something's sticking out that's not supposed to be there. It's like, wait a minute, we're breaking boundaries in the game. This isn't right. It's breaking boundaries right there. Water towers do not stick out of, or water towers and barns do not connect, and then half of one of them is sticking out on one side and half on the other. It's just breaking the laws of physics. We don't do that in normal life either. And then, as I noticed when I was trying to get the fast part of what they were saying down the second time, when Fluttershy is going through the maze of roads in the countryside, which is normal. I like the countryside. That was well done artistry for this show. But the Sugar Cube Corner, when it came up to that, I was confused by what I was seeing. I was wondering if something happened in season 9 of MLP. If it did, do not spoil it. I'm still watching through it. I was wondering if something had happened. The whole freaking, if Discord had somehow broken the space-time continuum and actually admitted a bunch of chaos and it had not been fixed. But anyway, you had Sugar Cube Corner, which seemed like it was on top of a cliff, and next to it there was some miscellaneous something also attached to this cliff, but even a further cliff off to the left side of it when you see the new Sugar Cube Corner, which I really, really don't like because Mr. and Mrs. Cake are suspiciously absent from this episode, and it seems like Pinkie Pie is now running Sugar Cube Corner, which is already I know that's where she lives, but her running Sugar Cube Corner is a disaster that is waiting to happen. So with the cakes being suspiciously, as I said, absent, we're already in trouble. Sugar Cube, and then there's not really a whole lot more of a buildings, not a whole lot of more structures throughout the thing. We get to the Royal Jelly Juggernaut televised cooking competition, but it's just a stage and not really a building that it's shown in. There is a building because the other main six bust in from outside. So there is an outside to it, but I don't think we ever saw it in the show. I don't remember seeing it. I do remember seeing some other structures next to Sugar Cube, but they weren't really well represented. That's all I got. Copper?
Copper.
Anything?
Hmm? What?
Kappa, would you like to add anything before I go off on my rant about the art style?
Yes, of course. Now, the art style itself, in the intro, is very fluent. The characters are very smoothly animated compared to what we got in the first episode, Generation 4, where the characters felt kind of sluggish, and there were obviously some animation errors. But here, it feels like the characters are fully drawn and fully animated in each individual frame, versus, having the flash animations where you can clearly see, like, arms, legs, and heads feeling like they're somewhat separated from the body. However, the backgrounds are extremely bland compared to what we got in Generation 4. The backgrounds don't even feel like they're... like, the characters don't feel like they're part of the background, is what I should say. The characters are so well drawn compared to the background that it just feels like two different worlds. For instance, the one thing that stuck out to me was the blender exploding animation, where it's clearly just someone just clicking on the image and just blowing it up. I mean, it just feels like that. It feels like when you're doing like an animation on certain programs, you click on it and you get like the diagonal enlarge, or you can do like horizontal enlarge or vertical enlarge, and all they did, it feels like, is they clicked, dragged, and just enlarged it while it was on a GIF loop. I don't really know what kind of impression this animation makes, but to me, it compared to what I mean, we were spoiled in Generation 4. I mean, we got a constant growth and, constantly improving the animation style throughout the entire series, where these artists had to go through and create so many elements for each individual character. And me, as an attempting animator, knows what kind of headache that can be to even have just the simplest like eye movement animation can take as long as a couple of hours to get right. And that's just for simple eye animation. You think about what we had at the end of season, and spoilers for this, at the end of season 4, where we had the battle with Tyrek. Oh, season 5. Season 4 or season 5? Anyways, at the battle with Tyrek, where we had like the Twilight ultimate magic cannon against Tyrek's magic absorption powers, and you think about what went into that simple 1 minute, a little bit more than a minute and a half battle. I mean, it was beyond anything I could ever do. So when you look forward to these animations, you see how these characters are so well drawn and so well put together, and then you get these caricature or Picasso style backgrounds. It kind of throws you off just a little bit from what you're used to. So this is definitely an adjustment for anyone who has just finished watching Generation 4 and wants to continue on with these characters. It's not something they can easily get onto. It's like if you had just finished eating a salad, and then they expect you to eat ice cream right after that. Rather than having a main dish, you go straight from salad to ice cream. And frankly, I'm not a big fan of that. But that's all I want to say on that, of course.
Yeah, we definitely were spoiled with the fight between Twilight and Tyrek, where it almost felt like an anime fight with big giant lasers and godlike powers. But anyway, I digress. I'm going to start with the opening, where I feel like the backgrounds were a little bit more... At least there was a background with the animation, but one thing that I did notice, which has stuck out to me quite a bit, is they had colored outlines during the main opening song. But as soon as you get into the show, they have black outlines. And I was really curious about this because, yeah, you can look it up. And Generation 4, all the characters had colored outlines. So I found this almost a shock when I saw it. And then it made me start thinking, these characters now have these black outlines, and they're super basic coloring. It almost felt like somebody designed these characters for a coloring book and then tried to animate it rather than the other way around. And the more I look at it, the more I see it, especially with the background. There may be like a picture frame or something, and it literally looks like a kid drew this picture frame with a crayon. And the surrealist, no depth in the backgrounds, where pans are literally just laying against walls instead of on a stove. Yeah, it makes me feel like a 5-year-old drew this. And then the style of the characters themselves. I know they're trying to go for a very cutesy kind of look. And I have nothing against that, but I feel like they've got this Funko Pop square head, small body thing that they're going on that I could have gotten out of a gachapon for like 50 cents. Like this little tiny toy. Lastly, I wanted to point out that their art style is following the Cal Arts art style, which has developed the last generation of animation that you can see in Gravity Falls, Steven Universe, Gumball, where they all have this sort of bean-shaped mouth. So it's really interesting that I've seen all these different things come together into this show that almost feels like they haven't even created their own style. They're just taking what's popular and throwing it all together.
Agreed.
Sorry.
No. It's perfectly fine. I do agree with that entirely. And, that's something I didn't really pay attention to till you mentioned it, was the black outlines. And I'm thinking, that is something. I mean, yeah, because when you think about the characters in general in Generation 4, yeah, there's not really one you can name, at least not one that I can name off the top of my head, that had a black outline that was not already colored black. Because, I mean, every single character had, like you said, colored outlines, which did indeed shape the character and make them, and gave them sort of a softer tone, rather than this more defined tone in Pony Life. Now, we also have the colors are definitely, in a way, it feels, the colors are brighter, but at the same time, they feel very basic, like you said.
Yeah, I noticed they don't actually have too much shading to them, or if they do, it's very, very hard to see. So they have these brighter colors in general, but they don't have any shading.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. You don't really notice shadows on this, do you? Oh, wait a minute. Are there? Yeah, there are shadows, but not nearly as defined. No, wait a minute. There are no shadows.
Yeah, there's no shadows, but there's very light shadowing, if that makes sense.
Yes. I do notice that. We get these character designs, and I mean, all the pony characters, at least in the first episode, if you noticed, are all roughly the same height. Even Princess Celestia is the same height. Now, I don't know exactly how to feel about that. When we had Princess Celestia in Generation 4, she was this sort of towering horse princess who was 3 times the height of anyone there. And then we get this princess here, which has a very less overpowering figure, who is just really another pony with a crown. So I mean, how do you respond to that? How do you go from this overpowering sort of queen-like figure who is the overseer of all of Equestria to this a character who just seems to be nothing more than just a higher figurehead, a slightly higher figurehead over everyone else. You get that. It's just something as simple as height and size that can really change your opinion of someone whom you originally had such high respect for, and know that you should honor them, or not really fear them, but more or less just have this respect for them, in a sense that, hey, they make the rules, you should follow those rules.
They did try to show at least some sort of anarchy by putting Celestia on a towering chair way above everyone else to show her superiority or whatever. But you're right, they all are the same size, and it comes back again to sort of giving me this feeling that it's this cheap keychain toy or something I could pay 50 cents for and get out of a gachapon.
Agreed. Cosmic, what's your thoughts on that?
Well, I do look at a couple pictures while that was going. But yeah, they are. The black outline is something that I wasn't really paying much attention to. I was more paying attention to what was going on in the show, because some things I realize, some things I don't. But I did realize one thing. I'll get to that at the very end of this. But yes, the black outlines was something that I noticed, and I didn't notice that when we were going through the theme song. I'm like, wait a minute, there's something that's, and when I think about back to it in my head, it's like something changed here. Something changed. And I'm thinking, kind of when I talked earlier, the background when Applejack's bucking those apples in the first, in the opening theme song, I said, the barn and the water tower in the back were more or less kind of melting together, and there's no outline there to show that one is different from the other. The only difference is the colors of the two, a red barn and a green water tower. It's like, well, those are melted together, so I wonder if we'll ever see that again, like you would see the barn, the stuff in the warehouse in the background if you're watching Gen 4, and not so much as here in Gen 4-5. But yeah, black outline of all the ponies, main 6 and non-main 6, supporting characters, I guess. I'm sure we'll get to more of that later in the show as we keep going on. But and then the size, the difference in size compared to Cadence to Celestia, my mistake. Celestia compared to
How
the main
dare
six.
you? How dare you get those princesses mixed up?
Yeah, Cadence is better. That's all. If you're gonna get me on ranking ponies, Cadence is above Celestia. So,
Ouch!
um, anyway,
Oh, okay, I see how it is.
well, hey, Luna's still first. So,
You're gonna make me
yeah,
cry.
you go 1, 2, 3, 4. There's this massive rift between first and second. Although Luna's first and Cadence is definitely second. I had to talk about 3 and 4. Anyway, getting back to what I was talking about with Celestia and the main six all being the same size, I found that odd that they couldn't make Celestia just a little bit bigger. And with Nicole Oliver once again reprising her role as Celestia, that's something else we got to talk about. We have people reprising their roles with a voice, but I think back to Gen 4, and Celestia's voice sounds different here in 4 or 5 than it did in 4. I'm thinking, it doesn't sound like Nicole Oliver, but it is. I'm thinking, wait a minute, it doesn't sound anything like her, because Celestia does sound different. But get back off voices. So the black outlines, the same size ponies, very offsetting to a certain extent. I think that they should have either, Pony Life should have not been made, but I digress because it's made now. But I think they should have somehow made a different size for certain kind of ponies. I mean, if Big Mac shows up, I sure hope he's a little bit bigger than the main six, because he always was. And I hope that the CMCs, which are in the show later on, I saw that they were some of the supporting cast. I hope that they are smaller and not anywhere near the same size, because then I will be really scared, really frightened. The show will be very offsetting at that point. But one thing that I was trying to mention earlier, a difference I noticed was with Rainbow Dash. If you go and watch the Pony Life episode, you notice that her rainbow mane is wrong compared to what it should be. Now, regardless, in Gen 4, it was wrong too, but then again, when you talk about the Biv part of the rainbow scale, blue, indigo, violet a lot of times just kind of melt together when you're looking at it at the rainbow. They're hard to tell the difference, so they just put violet, purple on there instead of putting indigo. But they had everything else right. It was red, orange, yellow, green, blue, violet. This one is like yellow, orange, red. I'm thinking, wait a minute, that's wrong. That's not how the rainbow goes. It's not even backwards, because the green, blue, and violet are in the right spot. So I think maybe somebody screwed up and did really poorly. Maybe they fix it in later episodes. I don't know, but I sure hope that doesn't make me criticize that for every episode following if it's still wrong. But like I said, I've only watched the first episode, and that was something I noticed, that Rainbow's mane is not cool.
Actually, Rainbow Dash is one of my favorite characters, and I'm looking at Gen 4 artwork of her. And usually the distinction between the red, orange, yellow versus the cooler colors of the green, blue, indigo, or purple, whatever you want to call it, they're separated by the warm colors being her forelock and the cooler colors being more of her mane, while her tail has all of the colors in it. So the Pony Life isn't wrong by their art style of this new Dash. It's just all mixed together, so it's not as distinctly separated between the warmer colors and the cooler colors. And her hair literally takes up like 50% of her body.
That is very true. But you have to think their eyes take up about 30% of their body.
Another thing I want to point out is you were saying that Katie Kristen was the one who has started to do this Pony Life, where she's also worked on Littlest Pet Shop and Gumball, which would probably explain the Cal Arts style. But if you also looked at the Littlest Pet Shop, it also explains why she decided to have such big heads compared to the bodies. But even still, both of those things don't usually have such thick outlines as Pony Life does. So it's just really pops. Like it really stands out that these are the characters that you're supposed to be looking at right now, right here.
Agreed. And the argument is that some people want to make that are fans of the show and have watched other series is they want to argue that it's been, if you will, Teen Titans Go because of the similar comedic style and how Teen Titans was originally this really dark, kind of edgy, show that we got that ended kind of on a cliffhanger that went to this kind of comedic, cartoonish style without any kind of serious interaction, but references stuff to its original show. That is kind of what's happened here in Pony Life.
Yeah, but it's also just this generation of animation it's just gone to this really goofy, quick moving art style, kind of surrealist in a way. I mean, even Teen Titans Go has the bean-shaped Cal Arts mouth. So I'm just wondering if it's just this generation where kids are having shorter and shorter attention spans, where it used to be like 10 minutes, then it's 5 minutes, now it's like 1 minute attention span, especially with things like TikTok, where things are so fast and have to be so funny so quickly, that I almost feel like shows are trying to keep the attention so much that they've lost the ability to tell a good story or have a good moral to the story. Because, I mean, any good show should have, for kids, should, from my opinion, should be able to teach kids something, no matter how small it is, may it be sharing or respecting other people's property or whatever. But with these shorter attention spanning shows, it's really hard to learn something.
They're doing it more for the entertainment rather than the story, is what you're saying.
Yeah, basically. It's more of a pacifier, something to put your kids in front of while the mom goes off and, I don't know, does something. Or the dad, for instance, now that we're in 2021, people are working from home, they need to entertain their kids while they go and work.
Right. Well, I guess
With,
we're... Oh, go ahead, Cosme.
Well, we were talking about, how the show is the more or less kind of art style. We are now in 2021. The I wanted to point out that this show is not an American animated children's show, but it's actually an Irish American. So it's not just American like Gen 4. We have a second bit of folks helping out with the show. It's an Irish American show, and I mean, we've got more of a a new art style and slice of life narrative that's been added to it. So it's a little bit at some point it's a little bit different than that's why I think maybe they're trying to more or less I don't want to say change the style of it so much, but I think they may be trying to find out what style appeals mostly to the audience they're trying to reach. So that's why the art style has been changed to what it is. And like Mountain said, there's a lot of you got to keep the attention focused to as much of as short of a span as you can do, because with everything that we've got nowadays, with commercials that are only so many seconds long, TikToks that are only so many seconds long, and even with what's known as stories now on things like Facebook that are so short. Everything we have is just 10 seconds, 30 seconds long. And if you don't have a lot of people, not only younger folks, but a lot of the older people, even myself, we don't have an attention span to sit around and watch something for as long as it is, unless we are actually interested in it. For instance, I can't stand commercials. I cannot stand commercial. I don't have the attention span to sit through a commercial, watch it, and pay attention, because 900 times out of 10, yeah, I said 900 out of 10 times, 900 times out of 10, the commercial has nothing to do with me. It's about, something that's not Viagra, not Cialis, but it's a new pill. It's how to lose weight. It's about a car. It's about something that I don't need. Something I already, I don't need, will never need, or something I already have. It's just that there's so much of an advertisement for things I don't need, things I already have, things I'll never need. So my attention goes elsewhere, and it's getting to that point where I think shows are being more or less constructed around, hey, what are people interested in? Let's make a show about that. And I think that's why these have been shortened down to 11 minutes with 2 5-minute segments in between. And I mean, that I think just with the art style and I'm going to say obnoxiousness, it seems, of the characters, their obnoxious style throughout the first episode, I think that's kind of what they're going for, because I'm thinking more or less that's probably going to grab the audience, those people who are watching the show, more than anything else. Oh my God.
Yeah, I think I'm going to wrap this up with overall impressions. Mine is with the show itself. It was enjoyable to revisit the characters and once again hear the voices of each character, as we expect to hear them. I wasn't entirely happy with the speed of the story that was delivered in. I did find a little humor in the situations that were involved in the first episode, with the humor of Pinkie Pie being the main star, of course. Pinkie Pie was definitely the star of this episode, and I kind of enjoyed that. I'm hoping that we can get an AJ episode, as AJ is my favorite pony. When we get through the episode, as far as the style, I wasn't completely disappointed with the animation as smooth as it was. I was worried it was going to be a lot more choppy. I wasn't happy with the backgrounds, of course, but I would say that altogether, the show itself in this episode, I give it I'd say about and I'm probably being generous, is about a 7.2 out of 10. I would not recommend this for adults that have not yet seen My Little Pony. I would not recommend this to them. I would probably recommend this to teenagers and kids, but probably not pre-adults.
Yeah, I'm still in a weird place where I want to say that I like it, but by how fast paced it goes, I also am almost turned off by that, which is another thing that I've seen in other shows like Miraculous Ladybug, is it's just sometimes it moves so quickly it is jarring. So I'm excited to see where this goes. I just have to take it in very small doses so that I can comprehend everything that happened. I need to watch it one episode at a time, really, which is kind of counterproductive of what they're trying to do with it being so fast paced. Almost like they're begging you to just binge watch it all, but I personally have to stop after one and process it all. But I definitely am willing to sit down and keep watching these just to see how it develops. So I'm very indifferent with it, really.
Kind of on the same page there, but I've kind of already said what I want to say about it. I'm just going to kind of more or less hit everything really quick. As 1, 2, 3, boom, he goes dynamite. First off, with the storytelling, I wasn't really happy with it. Like we said earlier, we just jumped into the middle of an ongoing story. It seemed there was no pre-story, as with Gen 4. We just jumped into the middle of something that was going on. And it's like, well, that seems like something that should be in between episode 1 and the final episode of the entire whole series and everything, not just from episode 1 and the final episode of season 1. I think that this episode, if it was meant to be the first one, I think they should have put it somewhere else, maybe given us a storytelling episode. I have a feeling that we're not going to get one of those. But anyway, the pace, sure, it's fast. It's 11 minutes, a couple 5-minute segments. I'm not too worried about that. I know some people really like the show to go slow, but I could tell you this 4 or 5 is a filler, more or less, and that's one thing I didn't mention earlier, but this is kind of like a filler. Like if you're watching a long series, sometimes they have these filler episodes that will go on forever and ever. I will point to things like Dragon Ball Z, where it takes 5 episodes to make a spirit bomb, and it should take at the most 2. Also, some of the if you watch One Piece, you know there's a lot of filler arcs. I'm thinking, get to the next person you're supposed to fight. So there's that. Getting to art style. There's 2 different art styles here, and it really is. I mean, I know it's a new art style. They're trying something to get to the audience that they've got. Yes, the art style is good. Backgrounds are okay. I mean, they're still a melting thing. And then the characters' black outlines, I don't like that. The characters need to more or less blend into the backgrounds, as long as you have a background, which is another problem with the art style. Not enough backgrounds and a lot of open spaces that need to be filled in with something like in Gen 4 where it was all cluttered. I liked that. Characters, I really can't say much about that because one episode. I'm thinking maybe in later episodes they'll be more like their normal characters from Gen 4. I hope to have that. I'm not really seeing anything so far that's different or that's so far off base. Maybe Twilight's not as much as maybe Twilight's not as much of a nerd as she usually is, but that could change. And for for accessibility, what this might be streamed on. If you can't afford Hulu, I mean, it's only $6 a month. But if you are bogged down with all your other streaming services, Netflix, Disney Plus, and all the other good stuff out there, if you're bogged down with that, instead of Hulu, Dailymotion I found is safe, legal. I'm sure there's another couple other sites, but I find that Dailymotion is usually one of the best ones to stream things like this on it if you can't afford the Hulu cost. So overall, I'm going to give this, and I'm really not being super generous with, because this is an opinion number, but I'm going to give it a 7.5 out of 10. It's got good storytelling. The animation is spot on for what needs done. Everything that I've seen just leads to the show having good storylines, good morals, good little lessons in life. I'm hoping that stays the same with the rest of it, since we're talking about certain episodes that are only 11 minutes long. I hope that the storytelling stays good and that the morals are reached in that short time span. But just to wrap this up, 7.5 out of 10. I would say if you've seen the show, this is something to watch. If you haven't seen the show, I would advise you either not watching until or watch Gen 4 and then watch this, and be very gracious when you watch this. If you've not watched the show, if you've got young kids that you're wanting to entertain them somehow because they're tired of what you're doing because you have to work or whatnot, this might be something to let them watch. I know boys probably won't get into it as much at a young age because that's the way boys are. But if you've got the female in the house, the younger female, this might be a show to try and get them to hook onto if we're trying to get them to waste time in front of the telly, as it is. So that's all I got. I think it's good. I hope it stays good for the remainder of the episodes. 7.5 out of 10.
Well, so what do you say? What kind of score would you give this?
Geez. Like I said, I'm a bit indifferent, so I'd probably give it a 5 or 6. I'm interested in where it can go, but it's definitely something that if I couldn't find a way to watch it, it's not going to kill me. It'll just be whatever. I'll shrug it off and forget about it, that I even tried to watch it. But since I can watch it, I am interested. I want to see where it goes. I want to see how it develops. So, yeah, I'd probably say a 5.
So, altogether, that gives us about an average score of about 7. So, the show is definitely worth watching at least once if you choose to do so. If you want to pursue it, that's perfectly fine. If you don't, then that's perfectly fine too. Keep in mind that when you watch this show, it is not directly based off of Generation 4. So keep in mind, this is not a continuation of the story, but rather a separate universe, a parallel universe, if you will. So feel free to check this out on Hulu and wherever else it is available. As Cosmic said, Dailymotion, I believe?
Yes.
That's where I'm watching it.
Yes. Feel free to check it out there. I'm sure that as the months go by, it'll probably become more available elsewhere. Currently, there is the first season is available on Hulu. I do not know if are other seasons available on Dailymotion.
As far as I know, there's only a couple of episodes that I've watched, but they might have the whole season. Season 1. I haven't gotten that far yet.
Okay. Well,
You-
for now.
You cannot find it on YouTube though. Pony Life is being very strict on taking down anything that has even a 5-second clip of Pony Life shown, which is very interesting because when I first saw promotion videos of it, I totally thought it was just going to be aired on YouTube or YouTube Premium.
Yeah, because I do know that I do know you can purchase some episodes of Generation 4 on YouTube, but they are not for free. There are no free episodes, at least not legal episodes. Anyways, at this point in time, if you do wish to watch this series, you will have to watch it either on broadcast television or on streaming services. For now, we're going to part ways here. This has been Omega Republic's reviews of Pony Life with Cosmic Prose and Mountain Soul.
My girl Ryan and I are gonna change the world. From Disney, the studio that
You guys can say final words if you want.
work together. I got you, girl. Come on, who's your dragon?
See you next time.
Adventure for the whole family.
I wish to join this fellowship of butt kickery.
Let's go. Oh, and goes the dynamite.
That's all, folks.
Yep. We thank you so